Welcome back to Let's Play the Addams Family. Last time around we rescued Granny from the confines of her own stove, and today we're going to be saving up an ultimate family member. But first of all, we have some unfinished business to take care of in the music room. Let's hit it! Well, it's getting there. It's not quite perfect, but it is definitely getting there. And now that's taken care of, we can go into our penultimate dungeon, the Portrait Gallery. And as soon as we enter the gallery, thing tells us the obvious. Uncle Fester is the person we're going to be rescuing today. And Abigail that he refers to, by the way, that's Abigail Craven. She was one of the villains from the first movie. Now this dungeon, not going to lie to you, kind of difficult. We have a lot of enemies to take care of here, including unicycling ducks and, for some reason, the knights from Joust. And this place is difficult. No other way to say it, really. But for all of its enemies and all of its difficulty, this is still kind of fun to do. It is hard, but never unfairly so, in my opinion, and parts of it are downright fun. And I also like that this really has a feel of a penultimate level of a video game. I know you can do the dungeons in any order that you choose. In fact, if you so wish to, you could do this one first, right at the start in the game. But to be honest, you'd have to be some sort of super masochist to do that to yourself, because you'd only have 2 or 3 hearts. You'd be dying every 30 seconds, if I'm being honest. We're coming up to our first secret area of this dungeon. Go inside either of these 2 darkened doors, it doesn't matter which one you enter. This will take you to the dark room. Now you don't actually go into a new room here, you just go into the previous room with all the lights turned off, but all the enemies have been replaced by dollars. And if you exit the room and then go back in it again, the lights will turn back on and you can grab some more money. But if you look over to the left hand side of the screen, you can see that all the enemies are back as well. Now this next room, the armory, contains 2 things that are going to cause us a lot of trouble. The first are these rotating maces, and the second are these knights. The knights throw swords which boomerang back to them, and this makes them very, very tricky to deal with. Probably the best way to take care of them is, as I'm doing here, is to grab the rapier, go below them, jump up, and give them the old gynecology stab. But the problem with that is that 9 times out of 10 when you encounter these guys, you won't have the rapier or indeed any kind of weapon to hand, so you've got to jump on them. And the hitboxes are kind of wonky, so if they throw a sword, sometimes the game will assume you've jumped on the sword they've thrown instead of them. And that's the problem with using the rapier. If you mess it up, you'll jump straight into them, lose it, and then you have to jump on the knights instead of using the rapier. We have a wall blocking our path here, but you can probably work out by now, as with every other wall blocking our path in this game, all you've got to do is press the switch, and it goes. More knights to deal with. They're not annoying right now, but they will be later on in this dungeon, trust me. And this platform lift is kind of tricky. It's very, very easy to either get crushed or get knocked into the spikes. I appreciate it didn't look that difficult just then, but trust me, that's a lot harder than I made it seem. And we have a secret area here that's kind of well hidden. Jump over to the left of this block tower here, and you'll end up in the trophy room. The trophy room has quite a lot of money to grab, and also 2 extra lives. And if you're not going to use them in this dungeon, then trust me, you'll need them for the final one. Both this dungeon and the final level of the game, grab any extra lives that you find. Next up, we have the Hall of Clocks, which introduces us to a new gimmick, or should I say an old gimmick revisited. At certain points in this room, you'll come across switches which, when you press them, will make blocks either appear or disappear. And these switches are a vitally important gameplay element when it comes to getting to one of the more obvious secret areas of this dungeon. And these pendulums, by the way, are very easy to avoid. You've just got to duck as they're coming towards you, much like Indiana Jones in that game I refuse to mention ever again. Now you can use this invisible platform here to hit that switch, which will cause a block to appear either side of the spike pit and make it easy to get over. But if you want the secret, you can't press that switch, so either take the hit like I just did, or you have the tendency to use them to jump over the gap. Get past this pendulum and this ghost, and then drop down this hole in the floor where there were platforms before you hit the switch, hook the left hand wall, and you'll get access to the golf balls, and also to a heart refill. At least you will if you don't do what I just did there, which was incredibly stupid, hit your head on the ceiling and fall down. But but the golf balls are very useful in this area of the game for getting rid of the myriad of enemies that are here to greet you. Such as these flies, which are all bunched up in a row, like 5 of them. God damn. And by the way, I have to apologise for an error I made in a previous video. I believe I said in one of my previous videos for this LP that in none of Mario's games could the fireballs collect coins. When I said that, of course, I totally forgot that that's exactly what they do in Super Mario Land, so I apologise if I misled anybody. And now we come to the most fiendish part of the dungeon we've seen so far. The dropping guillotine blades return from the games room, and as you just saw, we also have the return of the knights, and also the rotating maces. And these 3 things add up to create pain. If you haven't died at all in this dungeon up to this point, first of all, congratulations, and secondly, prepare to die here, most likely. And this jump is kind of a trap. You might think that you need to jump off the ghost and hit the switch, but if you do that, you'll likely fall in the spikes below. What you're supposed to do instead is to use the ghost as a stepping stone to get to the other end of the jump. We have training shoes here and a rapier, which are going to come in very handy. And apparently I just lost them both just by jumping on that knight. Damn it, game, why do you hate me so much? We have a trio of maces to get past here, and this is not going to end well. We're now coming up to the return of an old gimmick from a couple of previous dungeons, these springy platforms. For the first lot, ignore the money in the middle because you'll never get it without falling into the spikes, and for the second lot, walk across them. If you try to jump across them, you'll bash your head on the spiked ceiling. And now we come to Fly, 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 which is an area that's named like that for 2 reasons. Firstly, there are a lot of flies in it, and secondly, Gomez himself does a lot of flying by getting his hands on this Fezzcopter. And as soon as you get the Fezzcopter, much like in the furnace, get out of the room, go into the previous one, fly up to this little hidden nook, and you'll come to the closet. And please, no one make the obvious joke, I've heard it already. But this area does have quite a few useful items. In order, we have tennis shoes, an extra life, and although I'm kind of struggling to get to them, up at the top here we have a heart refill and an invincibility crest. And you want to collect these in a certain order. Get the shoes in the one up first, then the heart, and then the invincibility. This will give you the maximum time under the influence of invincibility. As we go back into Fly, 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 you now need to hurry to get to that Fezzcopter that we used before. Once you have the Fezzcopter, fly like the wind bullseye, past all these enemies and all these hazards. And the hazards, by the way, include the pendulums we've seen before, and also some new spiked platforms that I don't think appear anywhere else in the game. They're just for this one room, which is kind of neat. If you do it properly, you'll be able to get a couple of heart refills and also get around 3/4 of the way through the room before your invincibility runs out. We also have bombs to avoid, but they're not that difficult, just to keep away from them as they're about to explode. Also keep away from the spiked ceiling, as I just ran into it twice. But it's not that difficult of room to get past, really. Now as soon as you enter this room, take advantage of the few seconds you still have the Fezzcopter with you to take out a couple of these knights and get to higher ground. And there is kind of a well-hidden secret here that you wouldn't possibly think to get to the first time you play through this game. You can just use this switch to create a series of platforms to get over to that ledge. But if you do that, you'll miss out. Instead, use the projectiles this bear is shooting out of its mouth to get over, and you'll get rewarded with a 1-up. If you were to do it the more conventional method with the platforms getting over to the ledge, there'd be a wall blocking that extra life, and you wouldn't be able to get to it. And I swear, this part of the level gallery is copied and pasted directly from the weaponry. I mean, the placement of enemies and hazards, it's the goddamn same room, I'm sure of it. Now this bear's head looks a little weird because it's not shooting anything at us. And that's actually the entrance to a secret area, with 3 extra lives, a heart refill, and a golf ball. All of which are going to come in very handy, especially the golf ball. We have a rapier floating in midair here, but my advice is to completely ignore it because the golf balls are a lot more useful here. You kill more enemies in a much quicker amount of time, and you can do it from further away, whereas with the rapier, you have to go close range and probably risk getting hit. Unfortunately, when I say keep the golf balls as long as possible, I mean keep them as long as this jump. Because this goddamn jump is such a pain to get past without taking damage. I almost did it there, but I just always seem to take damage of that jump. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's intended for you to lose your golf balls or something like that. I don't know. And for some reason, going through the door at the end of the lower gallery takes us to a completely different area in the form of the library. And straight away we have a not very well hidden area over to the left here. containing, I think, between $24 and $30. So yeah, we're now in the library. I'm not quite sure why Ocean decided to have two very distinctive areas making it the one dungeon, but I can't say I'm that opposed to the choice. And as befits an entirely new aesthetic to an area, we have an entirely new set of enemies. Unfortunately the knights are back, but we have little books scurrying along and these jumping guys that aren't that difficult to deal with unless you get like gangbanged by 3 of them at once like I just did. And perhaps the worst placed enemy in the entire game to deal with, this knight. You have so little room to deal with this knight. To be honest, I'm not quite sure how the hell I escaped getting damage from that knight. I think it was a miracle from God, and then I paid for it by taking damage from that little scurrying book. One of the easiest enemies in the game. We also have bookworms and the jumping guys who are easy as long as you take them on one at a time. Then we have knights that are not easy at all, and god damn it, not again! So let's talk a little bit about Uncle Fester, shall we? And I'll split my discussion into the TV show Fester and the movie Fester. Fester in the TV show was played by Jackie Coogan, and he was Morticia's uncle on her mother's side. That makes him Granny's brother. And his behaviour was bizarre, even by Addams family standards. He fishes using dynamite, and he likes to stick his head in a vice to cause himself great pain, although it doesn't actually harm him. I'll talk a little bit more about the movie Fester in a second, but first we have some gameplay to take care of here. And I have a bone to pick with Thing. His hitbox says, some doors are less obvious than others. What could be a more obvious hidden door than marking a book with a giant 0? You might as well have a large neon sign flashing over it saying, this way to bonus area! But for all that I've mocked Thing here, that bonus area is kind of tricky to get to, the jump is kind of hard, and it took me 2 attempts, it may take you more than 2. Now this bonus area has enemies unfortunately, but also some dollars, 4 heart refills and 2 1-ups. And you need to be smart in how you use the heart refills, don't just grab all 4 of them as soon as you get to them, unless of course you're low on life and about to die. Instead, clear out all these enemies, then go back and use the hearts to refill all the damage you've just taken. Smart playing. And once you get back into the main room, what you need to do is to get onto the stack of books here as soon as possible, then you can avoid all the enemies by grabbing this Fezcopter. You can then fly high in the sky, and you can even snipe enemies from below to your heart's content using the golf balls. And that includes the knights. Revenge is sweet. And as you're flying along, keep an eye out for some of the titles of these books that you're flying past. One of them says, HP Sorcery. So you're telling me that this game predicted the creation of Harry Potter 6 years before the first book came out? You have got to be kidding me. And I do find it kind of funny that the end of this area is marked with a bookmark. Phew, that is kind of humorous. Now once again, as soon as you get into this next room, take advantage of the Fezcopter and get up to this high stack of books to grab this rapier. Once you've got the rapier, you can't lose it until you get to the bonus area. Thing's hint said pull down the book for something refreshing. Get to this book that says drop in, and then press down on it to, well, drop in to the bonus area with some dollars to collect, 2 heart refills, and a 1-up. And the only way to get that 1-up is to stab it with the rapier. It took me a couple of goes to figure that out, but that's the only way you can get to that live. So let's talk a little bit about the movie version of Fester. He was played in both Addams Family and Addams Family Values by Christopher Lloyd. In the first film, he has lost his memory of being Fester, and the villain Abigail Craven takes full advantage of this, sort of brainwashes him to believing he is her son Gordon Craven, and uses him as part of a plot to steal the Addams family fortune away. However, at the end of the film, Fester rebels against Abigail, is struck by lightning, and regains his memory of being, well, Fester, and also gains the ability to retain electrical charge. In the second film, Addams Family Values, he marries a woman called Debbie, played by Joan Cusack, and Debbie's only interest is to kill him to get her hands on his money. She's a Black Widow. Unfortunately, she's kind of picked the wrong target because Fester is invulnerable to Bane. There is one rather amusing scene in that film where she blows up a large portion of the mansion with Fester inside it, only for him to emerge from the rubble, blackened but smiling. Not only did he survive her assassination attempt, he enjoyed it! And also in the cartoon, there's kind of a running gag that he explodes quite a few times throughout the series. And now we're in the final room before the boss, the train room, and this is kind of different to all the previous sort of final rooms of dungeons. In the past, the final rooms have been a combination of all the hazards that you've faced up to that point, But not here. We have an auto-scrolling segment where you had to avoid these flashing ninja stars, I guess. And the best way to do that is to stay on the smokestack whenever you can and just duck down, and 80% of the shurikens won't hit you. If you step on the track at any time, you'll lose 1 heart of damage, but it's not too bad, it's not an instant kill, and when you get to the end of the room, there are 3 heart refills, so Ocean are being generous, really. And there's not much more to say. I mean, I appreciate that this is different to the usual final rings, but it is kind of boring, and I'm kind of glad that we're at the end of it now. Just one last set of shurikens to duck down, there's our heart refills, and now we can go inside this door to fight the boss. Now the game calls this boss the Witch, but it's actually Abigail Craven. She wasn't actually a witch in the movie, she was a loan shark, but I guess fighting a loan shark wouldn't be nearly as good as fighting a witch. But the really funny part about this boss battle is Uncle Fester. He's walking along the bottom of the screen here, dazed and confused, and the only way to reach Abigail / the witch's head to kill her is to super jump off his confused bonce. You can also jump on her projectiles, but it's kind of hit and miss. She goes down really quickly, and that's it, we've saved Uncle Fester. His memory has come back to him. And I must say, it's a nice change to have a member of the Addams family who's actually appreciative of being rescued. Thanks, Fester. You're a class act. Don't get me wrong, you were kind of an asshole in the first movie, but you're still a class act. And our reward for killing Abigail and freeing Fester from her control is 3 extra lives. Plus you might notice we also got another extra life, and we got that for getting over 400,000 points. Every time you get over a multiple of 50,000 points in this game, you are rewarded with an extra life. And I also forgot to mention that from the movies onwards, Fester is Gomez's brother and not Morticia's uncle. And so that brings to an end the Portrait Gallery and Library. All the family members bar 1 are rescued, so join me next time when we rescue Morticia and finish the game. Until then, sayonara.